Megan.
Sheila.
It's another episode or another chapter.
Snohomish Storytellers.
Yes.
Yes. And welcome to all of you.
Hello.
We have to remember that you can now see us.
Yeah, we gotta maintain eye contact. But yes, today's guest, a continuation of last month's episode. It feels like we're on a theme
We're on
right
a
now.
safety
Yes.
plateau.
Not a plateau. We're on a safety journey.
Okay.
A plateau just makes it sound like you're stuck.
We have landed on the safety plateau.
Okay,
We will
I
eventually
see.
cascade
Cascade
down off of
off
it,
of
back into chaos.
Controlled chaos is actually a
We did
very
bring,
good
yes,
theme.
that did come up during our chat. But all of that nonsense to bring it back around, that our guest today is Chief Nathan Alanis,
Yes,
who
from
is the Snohomish City Police Chief.
yes,
And also apparently a lieutenant with the county.
yeah, which we didn't even talk about that part. So maybe that's for
true.
a future
we didn't
episode,
really bring that back around.
right?
but
Like, what do you do as a lieutenant in the
sounds
county?
like it's administrative.
Yeah, the Snohomish Police Department and the way it's set up, the infrastructure being contracted from the county. We got to learn quite a few tidbits today.
Yeah, it was fun to have him share a little bit about the goals that they have within the city and what his strategy was to meet the needs that we have here. And we're obviously very event centric, which has its own needs and low felonies, which was nice to hear.
Yes.
So he was able to create a position that kind of targeted more of the needs that we have in the community engagement and the events versus, needing to do severe investigations because we just don't have a lot of that going on, which
exactly
is
more
encouraging.
Preventative instead of reactive type of police department.
Yeah, and we got to talk about our events.
Yes.
Official and unofficial.
Yes, one that is coming up very, very soon, actually.
Trick-or-treating, which is coming up in just about, 10 days now?
Something like that. I can't count anymore.
Yeah, so that will be fun. I really appreciate that we have these leaders in Snohomish that are willing to just take their time to come engage with us this way. This is a whole another way that they can engage with the community. And it's a little bit, more concentrated conversation. And I just appreciated his time and what he had to say and his commitment to the city.
Yeah, it really goes to show that we are all partners in this community.
Yeah.
We're all in it together to make Snohomish the best place for us to live and work and play and sometimes drive down the street with lights.
Yes.
So,
and our human errors that we talked about a little bit too.
And we're all humans. So, but yeah, here's the episode with the Snohomish Police Chief.
Enjoy. Sheila.
Megan.
Welcome back.
Yes, another month.
I know.
Time flies.
It's technically October now.
Yes.
For the timing of this podcast.
Yes. And it's fall.
Yeah, fall, y'all. It is actually fall today.
It is fall.
On the recording day. Happy fall.
First day of fall. I was happy to get my browns out, and now people can see it on camera. But
Very
I'm
cute.
happy to get my fall outfits out, my sweaters.
Very fallish. I like it. And we both got our boots.
Yes. Right
Got
for the occasion.
Today with us, we have Chief Alanis, Chief of the Snow. You'll have to tell me your actual
Title.
Actual title is, so I wear two hats, but for here, I am the Chief of Police for the Snohomish Police Department. And then, of course, in my other world, if I go outside the city, I am a lieutenant with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, okay. See, some of our questions that we had were like, how
Totally
does this
around
work?
that.
And you just gave us kind of a nice segue into that.
Yeah.
So, Chief of Police for the city of Snohomish.
Yes.
Tell us what that means and who you're responsible for and what's sort of your boundaries within the city label.
Yes, absolutely. So since 2012, the city has contracted for police services. And so as part of that contract, the chief position is a lieutenant billet with the sheriff's office.
Oh.
So, which is nice for me. I have a little bit more autonomy than just being, lack of a better term, middle management in the sheriff's office. Here I'm kind of the top one in the city. So, of course, I still have people I answer to, obviously. But it's a little bit different situation as opposed to most city police, which is appointed by the mayor or the council, depending on how it works. Here, I am, they have a say, but it's a little bit different. But my role is I am in charge of everyone that works within the city. We're at about, when we're fully staffed, about 18
Wow.
people there. We have 2 administrative staff, and then we have our patrol officers and 2 detective billets and a community outreach person. But we're a little bit understaffed right now. We're missing a couple, but
Okay. And so being a lieutenant with the sheriff's department, how does that work? And how did you get assigned or delegated to be the chief for the Snohomish Police Department?
yeah. So once you make it to lieutenant, it's a little bit different world. When you're a deputy and then even a sergeant, you're more on the road and you're kind of more of the hands-on. So then once you get up to lieutenant, it's more administrative. So less of the lack of a better term, fun stuff, more of the managing the budgets and the equipment and all of that stuff. So I kind of joke around here in Snohomish. I'm kind of like I'm like the dad that tells them no, we can't do this, we can't do that, or hey, I want to go to this training. All right, that's great. What value are we getting out of it from the city? Well, 'cause we gotta write those checks and let them know. So that's my biggest thing right there is just kind of managing the day to day. So we have an allotted funding from the city that we get. So I have to be responsible for that. So make sure
Mhm.
that we're using the city's money wisely and just that sort of thing.
Well, we really appreciate you managing the funds correctly. I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone appreciates that. So how does that work with the police being contracted? You use that term. Can you talk more about what that is? How is that different from maybe other cities' police departments?
Essentially, instead of having a budget that's just set for the year for the city, it all depends on really the city and the county working together on what they want and what kind of
Mm.
services. So they really, I mean, in theory, if the city of Snohomish wanted a certain unit, they could talk with the county. Okay, how much would it be to get an extra patrol person or this? So they work all that, and now that goes above my head. That's more of our chief level, our bureau chief, and the sheriff herself works in some of that stuff. But that's really a good part of my job is I meet regularly with the mayor and the city administrator to kind of see what issues are going on in the city and how we can help. So we, for several years now, we've just due to staffing, we've been a billet short. We haven't had
Mhm.
our community outreach person. We've had 2 detectives. And so I actually, this last year, that was a change that I made was I just said, talking with the city and said, I think the city would get more value
Mhm.
out of having that community outreach deputy position filled and hold the vacancy and detect. So it's a little bit more of a workload for our detective now, but I think having now someone that can go to all the events and be at all of
Mhm.
the things has just been such a bonus. So it's
Mm.
sometimes managing that because as it is, we always have to figure out how to make do because
Mhm.
invariably when we're fully staffed, someone's, out on leave or
Right.
sick or injured or something. So
So, what sort of things would a detective do that was sort of the reason behind your decision of like, I can see that the need that we have here in the community is more for this community outreach person and not so much for the detective? Was there kind of a identifier there that you were looking at, metrics?
yes, basically. I mean, so it's Snohomish. We don't have a lot of felony level crime, which is a good thing. Now we have crimes, unfortunately, but typically when someone calls in something to 911, the deputy takes the initial report, and then if there's leads that can be investigated, they can forward it on to the detective. And we have one of the best detectives in the county.
Hmm.
Actually, my old partner when I was a detective is Detective Saarinen is our detective here.
Okay.
So one thing that she's been really good at is working with some of our newer deputies. Hey,
Mm.
here's what I can do if they want to get some experience working cases themselves. So that was part of what we talked about was, based on our level here of serious felony crimes that we don't have that many. And we definitely have enough work that we could use 2 detectives. But in the meantime, she really focuses on felony level,
Mm.
the serious crimes. But if you have something that's a little bit lower or, a little bit less complex,
Mhm.
it's a good experience since we don't have so many calls here that we're constantly running to 911
Mm.
calls. They
Hmm.
regular road deputies can get some of that experience, interviewing and
Mhm.
Okay.
just gathering evidence, a little bit extra stuff that you may not get if you work in South County where you have to get to the next call and you
Right.
Mm.
only have enough to take a statement and move on. So
That's
That's
really
smart.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a smart way to utilize the people that you have in the
Mhm.
positions and also, that professional development that's giving them a
Exactly.
chance to maybe advance into something else because like, I mean, I'm thankful that we don't have such a heavy caseload that you
Mhm.
could keep 2 detectives busy full time, but there's still enough, experience that you can kind of bring those other deputies in so that they can get that hands on.
yes, and detective positions don't come open that often. So whenever we
Mhm.
have one, especially here in the city, it's always really desirable.
Mm.
So and for me, I always if we can have someone that has some familiarity to the city in
Yeah.
here,
Right.
I always like, it's a little bit of a plus. I always tell them So we've had people that have worked in the city and had chance working cases. It's good experience. So we're not getting someone just completely
Brand
new.
new.
Right.
Yeah.
And they know how things work here versus
Yes.
somewhere else.
And
Yes.
familiarity with the area and the people who live here.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's a different experience working here because if you come from the county and you're working South County, South Everett, where,
Mhm.
you're cruising up and down Highway 99, going call to call, and then you come here where it's a little bit, slower
Mhm.
pace and,
Yeah.
it's you get to know the people here, whereas
Mhm.
there you may never see anyone more than once in your career, whereas here you're seeing the same people every day because they
Yeah.
own the business or, they
Gotcha.
work at the place you're stopping at. So,
Yeah. I was chatting with, is it Deputy Taylor?
yes,
I don't know his last name.
Davis.
It's so nice that everyone's on a first name
First name
basis.
basis.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're
which I
so friendly.
appreciate. Yeah, but I'm like, what's their last name? Feels a little too informal, maybe. But he was telling me where he came from previously, and I'm like, how do you like it here? And he's like, oh, it's cake. He's like, it's so nice. Like everyone's so friendly, and because he's the community engagement
Yes.
officer, right? Yeah, so he's like, it's really nice to just be on more like the preventative side and
Mm.
understanding like what could we be looking at and what are people finding that are the things that are important to them instead of this response all the time. Because
Mhm.
I think he came from an area where he was constantly going on the calls, constantly responding, and this is a little bit more of a proactive and engagement role. Do you want to share a little bit about how you developed that and what the expectations were versus how he's stepping in? Is it matching up for you?
Yes, it is. So it's actually kind of funny. So I kind of go back to my own experiences. And when I first promoted to sergeant out in the county, I was expected to get put on a graveyard crew somewhere, but they had a community outreach spot for the whole county that was a sergeant. And that deputy went on leave for a year. And so I was the junior one. So okay, you're that. And so
Yeah.
literally put my name on next door countywide. And if you have
Oh,
an issue,
wow.
reach out. And I
Here's
just
his
had,
phone
oh,
number.
That
yes.
was brave.
Yes, it was every night. It was meeting to meeting to meeting, but it
Oh,
was
man.
good. I got to see parts of the county I wouldn't seen, but
Hmm.
you see a lot. I mean, it's as different as it is. It's the same. It's a lot of the
Mhm.
same problems,
Hmm.
and so I really wanted to kind of take okay. Here's what I learned from that, and bring that here. And
Mhm.
here we have so many events.
Yeah.
We have so many. I mean, we have when you think of the high school. You've got a couple thousand people right there concentrated
Right.
in one area. So we have just so many things like that where it's just good to have some consistency in who they're dealing
Mm.
with. There's nothing we hear a lot of that. Which deputy did you talk to? Oh, I don't remember, but it's just so much easier to say, oh, you have this ongoing issue. Let's send it to Deputy Davis to work at, especially for nuisance type problems.
Mm.
Abandoned vehicles or things
Right.
like that aren't a serious nature, but they're if you're living there, it can be a problem.
Mhm.
So that's just nice to have that consistency, especially since our deputies work. One works the front half of the week, the others work the back half of the week. So you could
Mm.
be working with one deputy, then you call back, and so they're not back for 3 days. So it's just nice to have someone that can some working both sides of the week that they can deal with.
One thing that I find interesting is like when I was in small business, my dad and I were in business together, and the business is on 120th and Aurora in North Seattle. Good times. And you literally, at this point, this is nothing against SPD, it's just where they are because they're so thinly stretched. And we could probably be being robbed
Mhm.
and call. And if they can come help, they will. But it's an if. Versus here, it's like, hey, there's this kind of derelict RV that's been out there for a while, and bam, someone's there dealing with it. So sometimes it's like when I see comments through the community on like, I can't believe that the city is allowing RVs. It's like, well, what faster response do you want than literally same day or as soon as they can get a tow truck big enough to move
Mhm.
that thing out of the way versus what you're seeing in other communities? Like our problems are kind of
Mild
Snohomish
comparatively.
problems.
Yeah. But I
You
think
know?
unless, like you said, they have experience with the contrast,
Yeah.
right? Of getting that service, I guess, in a different manner. They're so used to the excellent service that the current police department gives them that becomes expectation, right?
Yeah, I
So
think
that
that's my point.
yeah,
That's what I'm trying to
it's
say.
Yeah.
Like,
when you're not there at the snap, like, and people don't understand how lucky we are to have, a community like you guys
yeah.
protecting us and being there so available and being so engaged with us that we're just spoiled.
Well,
Maybe a little
and
bit.
I think part of it too just comes from, I mean, for most people don't call 911 that often. So it
Mhm.
always, when they call, it's usually a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so it's, and I have to laugh because I started my career in Seattle, at the city of Seattle 20 years ago. And I remember as a new guy seeing things sometimes, thinking that was a big deal. Like, oh, we got to get a car over here. And I remember seeing an older veteran officer. I'm on lunch break, just driving past it. Like, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And, it's just, but it's a big city and they have to
Mhm.
manage their resources a little bit differently. So that is the advantage of being in a smaller community like this, is because, we're not inundated with 100 calls on the screen and we have to kind of triage it. We can actually get to it, hopefully, and find some solutions. And that was the whole point, especially by having the community outreach deputy, is
Mhm.
let's find it, sometimes you have to, take someone to jail and
Mhm.
and that, but sometimes it's okay. This isn't working. We're doing the
Mhm.
same thing over and over again. Let's figure out a long-term solution. So
Yeah.
having one person that can really work on that is just such a huge bonus.
That's so nice because you hear about the police always being like, when talking about the carrot versus the stick, right? It seems to fall more on the stick side. So the fact that you guys are even so forward thinking of like, oh, what different approaches can we take? Kind of doing more of the carrot than the stick. That's really nice to hear from law enforcement. I feel like I've never heard that from other folks before.
I think a lot of times we are just naturally reactive,
Yeah.
and that, and you start to learn from mistakes. And we've been fortunate, we haven't had anything happen here, too
Mhm.
bad. And so
Knock
it's
on
one of
all
those
the
things.
wood.
Yes, exactly. And so it's, always try and get ahead of it when you can, if we can prevent a big
Yeah.
issue. So
Is there anything, I mean, we talked about how potentially easier it is in this location or in this area, but is there anything unique or actually more difficult with Snohomish, given that we are a historic district or we have a historic district? Maybe some of the tourism, because I can imagine having people, the volume of people that go through Snohomish versus like the people who actually live here. Does that impact anything that you guys do?
it does. In fact, case, like I said, we don't have a lot of felony crime, but we do get a good number of misdemeanor crime, and a lot of it is
Ah.
theft. And there's a couple reasons for that. One being you have two major highways that just come through
Mhm.
here. So it's easy to get on Highway 2 or Highway 9 and get out of town, or, cut through. But we also have a lot of events that bring people from out of the area.
Mhm.
And, 99.999% of them are great. But you do get some that, hey,
Mhm.
come in here for different reasons, especially at night, when the bars go down. Sometimes you get people from out of town that come in and cause some trouble sometimes. But haven't anything too out of hand, but it does happen. So I think it's just kind of the nature of just who's passing through. And then when you have big events too, like the soccer has a tournament out there, and now you've got 1,000 people coming into town, and even though they're not caught here to cause trouble, but
Mhm.
just having that many people can
Things
result in
happen.
the fender bender that happens, or that person didn't know that was a one-way street, or whatever it is. So those types of things can happen. But in terms of major issues, thankfully we don't have anything here. Like,
Mhm.
there are places that, and people talk, criminals talk, that's the place I'm going to go to commit my crime. We don't have that here, thankfully. And because honestly, it's because we have such good eyes on, and we have such a good just community that cares, that keeps their eye out. I mean, that's the one thing here, is that we have a lot of businesses that will call on behalf of other businesses that can notice things that are off. Hey, I know for a fact that that business is,
Mhm.
that so and so is gone on vacation and they're closed this week, but yet I
Mhm.
saw this person drying the doors, or things of that nature at night. So that's the really beneficial thing here, is just looking out for each other, as opposed to
Yeah.
just I care about my front, and
Right.
Mhm.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
better be
think
safe
that's
than
a great
sorry.
point. And sorry, Sheila, we didn't talk about this in advance,
Mm.
but it just popped into my head. So, when you were talking about the influx of people that come into Snohomish for soccer tournaments or big festivals or parades or whatever it is that's bringing in that influx of, 8 to 10,000 people, depending on the event. I know that the city has prioritized emergency management. Is there any plan of, like, God forbid something happen during one of those days,
Mhm.
and we are kind of limited when you think about the staff, like you said, you're even a little bit understaffed
Mm.
for the size of the city. Is that kind of integrated into the goals as you work with the city administrator and the mayor of how would we handle something like that?
Yes. In fact, they have kind of just the city has just redone their whole emergency management plan,
Mm.
and kind of changed up how it used to be. So that is a really big thing between us and the fire department. We're working together, kind of understanding, because here, I mean, it kind of depends on what the incident is, but being having two rivers nearby, if we had a
Mhm.
big flood or suddenly happening,
Mhm.
obviously fire would take the lead on that, and we would assist where we could. Whereas opposed to if it was some sort of tragic event or whatever, it would be the opposite, where we would take the lead. So we regularly do that. The nice thing about being where we're at is if there was ever a major incident, you would have county deputies here. You'd have
Mm.
Lake Stevens, Monroe could all be here within a few minutes, and we all kind of help each other out that way. We're all
Ah.
on the same radio. So, I've got children that go to school here in Snohomish, and that's not my worry. I always tell people, it's if something bad happens, the cavalry's coming very quick, and we do prep for that. And in terms of natural disaster type events, I mean the fire guys, no one preps more than them, and they they
Yeah.
prepare for everything, and that's why they have all the cool equipment. So we always tell them, like, bust it out. We're not afraid to ask for it. And so there's just a lot of that, but it's constantly a matter of looking at what you have and just every year reevaluating it because things change. And,
Mhm.
you can have an emergency plan that, was great 2 years ago, but now it's completely obsolete because this road closed or this or
Mhm.
that.
Mm.
So,
That's interesting. The mentioning the collaboration with the other police departments in the surrounding cities. I guess I never thought about that. That we are, fairly close to Lake Stephen, Monroe, Everett, a bunch of other cities. Is that common in police departments that you guys do you know, rely on other cities' police
Or is
departments?
that more because of our contracted
Contracting
with the county? Does that make a
matter?
difference?
that helps a little bit in terms of just because, we could have a county deputy that worked in the city or vice versa. So they kind of know the ins and outs, but really just that more collaborative approach is I think it's just more the new trend that you're seeing in law enforcement.
Ah,
I mean, back, in the 80s and the 70s, you hear police departments not sharing information,
uh-huh.
and you hear about these cases like, how come nobody caught this person? Well, because they
Mhm.
didn't share what they had. It's changed. And so now it's much more open. And then technology has
Mhm.
changed a lot of it. So I think, if I was, if I'd seen to the future, if I was going to go ahead 20 or 30 years in policing, I think you're going to see more of that
Mhm.
and less of the old, chasing someone down the road at 90 miles an hour, more of, okay, let's get the communication out there, let's get the drones up, that sort
Mhm.
of thing. So you're already
Yeah.
starting to see some of that in some of the neighboring cities like Everett and things like that, utilizing that. But you have to be collaborative in order to do
Mhm.
that. I mean, it's just kind of the way that we're headed. And
It makes sense, right? Like, if the resources are there, you're a couple miles down on Highway 2, why not call the Monroe
yes,
folks that are already there instead of speeding down the highway and freaking everyone out? So does that apply to if we have big events in Snohomish, do you guys staff up or, during these influxes, or how does that work?
yes. So we have meetings with the city all the time for the parades,
Mhm.
Easter and Pride and Kalaya. We kind of get the big the big hit in the summer there of just all run it after the other. So we have it down pretty good. So we do a lot of meetings ahead of time and prepping, and then the important thing is afterwards we talk and we try and do it quickly so it's fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
What went wrong? Or
Yeah.
okay, what do we need? And it's usually never anything major. It's
Yeah.
usually like, hey, we need to make sure that we put more signage because people are
Mhm.
driving down this closed street or
Mhm.
whatever. But I always for those I always let's overstaff it
Mhm.
and if we need to, next year cut back, we can. But I've never heard anyone complain that there were too many out there because we also set the expectations too of what we're looking for. And if it's
Mhm.
a parade, for example, we want deputies out there to be visible. I can help out if something's going
Mhm.
on or, God forbid something terrible happens. But usually more, 90% of the time is
Mhm.
giving directions or helping out with this.
Yeah.
And just there, I've never had any complaints. They're not out there to, start, tagging everyone for, jaywalking or whatever it might be in a parade. So they know. And that's actually a thing too that I'm very discerning of who I who I bring in for these special events, And
But where do you get the staff from?
usually I offer it to our deputies here first. So,
Ah,
overtime is always, especially vacations are coming
sure.
up and stuff. So I usually will put it out to people that are here in the area first that know. And then after that, I put it out countywide.
Oh,
And
interesting.
again, I'm always, kind of preference. I kind of prefer people that I've dealt with before that
Of
we know,
course.
especially when we hear good feedback. Hey, I
Yeah.
really like this deputy, or anyone that's worked in the city. I try and do that to keep some consistency, but sometimes we need 10 bodies and
Yep.
we need them tomorrow, and who can make it? So
Yeah.
it kind of depends.
That's so cool.
You guys do a good job being out there in the community and like Sergeant Ventures, who's now
Mhm.
Lieutenant Ventures,
Hmm.
I
Oh,
understand.
congratulations.
Hmm.
Yes. Like I would I would text him first, be like, "Do you have a minute?" And he'd usually call me back so quickly. And it
Mhm.
was so strange slash nice to just have this sergeant available to reach out to. And he was always at the meetings, kind of planning for these special events and then the debriefings and then it kind of just became where I'd be like, well, I wonder what we could do with this. And I could just call him up. And then I heard he was leaving. And I was like, no, no, Sergeant Ventures can't go. And I was like, who's going to fill his position? And they're like, well, the other Chris Marino is being considered. I was like, yes,
Yes.
because he was another, I guess at the time, deputy. who was really involved in things going on downtown. And he was there and friendly and made sure that you knew who he was and wanted to be of assistance. And he now has that position, as I understand, which
We're still waiting to have him officially moved over,
oh,
so
really?
hopefully
Didn't the
soon.
mayor just approve that at the last council meeting? I thought I saw that on there. I thought that meant like check done.
It's just a matter of getting him backfilled in his current spot. So and it's it's
So
he's
is
in
he
charge
like working 2 jobs? And is Chris Ventures working 2 jobs? How does that work?
Well, so it's funny because Lieutenant Venture now supervises him. So of course now he's the one. Well, I need him for this and this until they can backfill. And I was like, wait a minute. So you know how important your old job was. So so we got to give him a hard time. But his stuff's already moved in. He's ready to go. We're just waiting for the orders to get
wow.
cut and have him there. But in the meantime, I didn't realize how much Venture was doing because now I'm handling all that work. So I know.
So I should be calling you now.
Yes, and I did do that job before when I was a sergeant, and I know how busy it was then. So I'm like, now put it on top of my regular job. I'm like, boy.
Yeah. Well, he did set a high bar.
Yes,
he was really good at his job, which is why it was such a loss. But then I was so excited to see that somebody that was already engaged in the community, even though it wasn't his official job to do those things. So, well, hopefully he is like officially in his role soon.
Hopefully soon. And he actually was here. He predates the contract. So he was a Snohomish police officer from when they were still their standalone department. So he's very vested in the community.
Didn't he come up through like some sort of a training program or?
He was an explorer with us. And then he was, I believe, a cadet with the city.
Well, and he's also a downtown business owner.
Yes.
So he kind of has that inside knowledge of what it's like to have a business here and sort of what of the inside issues
scoop.
or the things that you might know a little bit more intimately versus just hearing it from someone. So I think that's just kind of a unique.
It gives a different perspective, right? Because you're not just, again, the reinforcement or function, but you understand what the needs are, which I think I really appreciate that every time I've interacted with you guys, which is mostly in events and stuff, everyone's always so nice and so like friendly. And it's just like I'm talking to another person, another member of the community, and not so much the like fear of like, oh my God, I'm talking to a cop, because I do get really nervous.
Or you forget your name.
And it's like, pull me over, but
you never get pulled over, do you?
I actually have never been pulled over.
I knew
jinx, don't jinx it. Knock on all the wood.
Yeah, because you're such a rule follower.
I am very much a rule follower, but I think that's why it makes me nervous when I'm interacting with, law enforcement, where it's like, oh man, they know all the rules. So if I accidentally break one, they're going to know. They can call me out on it. But you guys are always so friendly.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate that.
And the big thing that I always tell people is, look, doing this job, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have that. I go, and certain things we can defend. If you arrest someone and ends up being the wrong charge, and you honestly, you know what I mean? That happens sometimes because you ran the name wrong or you ran a plate wrong, and we can work through that. I go, but when you're just a jerk to someone, you can't really defend that.
Right.
And so that's the one thing I always tell people. I'm like, you don't, that's the biggest thing, and that just goes a long way. And having worked here, we've seen it before where we've had people that we've dealt with, sometimes even had to arrest before, but they've come to our defense for various things. Or, hey, is everything okay? And it's like, because we've tried to treat them with that. So I always try and remember, and remind people that work here too, like, this is a community.
Right.
This is not, we're not on the East Coast in a major city with 2 million people here, and so you're going to see everyone again. So remember that
we're partners. It's not us against you guys. It's partnership to keep the community safe. And speaking of events and all of the community engagement that you guys have been doing, so one of the things that are coming up is Halloween, and that's always a fun time in downtown Snohomish. But we're going to do something with trick or treating this year, right?
Yeah, it sounds like we have more official plans. Trick-or-treating has always been kind of like this, we don't know who owns it. It's going to happen anyway. And like HDSA has tried to take some ownership over it before, but there was liability reasons and it doesn't matter. We're back to where we are now. We're all working together the way that I like it. But what's going to be the police department's role in that? What should we expect from you on trick-or-treating day?
Yeah,
Halloween?
so like you said, it's kind of been just a free-for-all before. So I think it's still going to be a bit chaotic because you're talking about kids and candy and costumes, but it's going to be controlled chaos. So our function there is going to be strictly on pedestrian safety. So a lot of it's going to be, especially this first year having to do this, is we're not going to be shutting down streets or anything like that. Is not the plan, but it's going to be more, let's find a actual route that everyone can go. Okay, everyone go down
Mm.
maybe this side of the street this way, and
Yes.
then we can have some
Wow.
I
controlled
suggested that in
intersections. Yes.
2022. I just want that on the record.
Yes, so it's going to be a lot of that. So our job is going to be just making sure that we have staff there at the
Mm.
crosswalks, just so we don't have
Yeah.
any accidents happen or anything like that. We've been fortunate so far that we haven't had one happen yet, but we'd like to keep that going. So we're meeting with the city and with the fire, and we've had several meetings just to kind of about what the plan's going to be. So I think
Mhm.
it's coming into place.
Yeah. It sounds like we're going to partner HDSA primarily with like information. We're going to try
Mm.
to get as much information out there as possible so that people know that there is
What to
something
expect.
to expect this
Yeah.
time instead of just show up and get
Yeah.
candy. So I'm looking forward to a little more structure. I think it's going to be one of those years where we're like, let's try it
Mhm.
and see what happens.
We'll learn
But
from it.
Yes, and
yeah,
and then when we meet afterwards, we'll find out what the big glaring thing is that we all
that's
missed, and we're like,
right.
Exactly.
Oh yeah,
okay,
duh. Why didn't we see that
yes,
first?
exactly.
Yeah.
Whoops, that always happens. But
Speaking of controlled chaos, and I might like, I don't know, regret this later, but let's talk a little bit about the lighted car parade because
my
I
gosh.
think people have a misunderstanding of what that event is. It's not an organized event. It just happens. They follow traffic safety, which is why so far we haven't needed any sort of special event permit or anything. But we have seen people get super excited about it and like set up canopies and they're barbecuing in the middle of
yeah.
parking
tailgate?
space. Yes, parking spaces while the streets are still open and drivers are caught off guard. Like, let's talk about this event a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So last year, I think I put a little information out on Facebook, and I think
It was
that
not well received.
I know. I believe I might as well have just put a picture of the Grinch and I hate Christmas. And no, so yes, it is. It's right there is kind of the perfect example of what's great, and then what can be a little bit more frustrating
Yeah.
in the community. And the phrase that we hear a lot in smaller towns is that's how we've always done it, which
Mhm.
is generally good. But then when you bring in more people and suddenly there's 3 times as many people as there used to be, sometimes
Mhm.
you have to change things. So
Yeah.
for the lighted car parade, yeah, it was organic, just much like Halloween, and people started decorating their cars and doing the loops, and then of course, how we
More
are.
people do the loop.
Yes, then let's make it bigger and louder
Yeah.
and bolder, and what else can
Mhm.
we do? And then social media spreads it, and then you have people coming
Mm.
from out of the area that
Mhm.
are bringing this in. So our concern was not about vehicles with lights on it. It wasn't about any of that stuff.
Mhm.
So that wasn't what I was, what I had addressed, and that wasn't my concern. My concern was the other things like, we have dump trucks driving down the road with their lights on, throwing out candy, and then
Mhm.
9-year-old children running in the street to pick up candy
Ugh.
When
on a
there's
dark
still
winter's
traffic
night.
driving
Yes,
through. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And then when you throw in the mix the person that maybe came into town to eat at one of our restaurants that doesn't know about this, and
Mhm.
now they're trying to make a turn, and now there's people that have set up a tent and a canopy in the middle of the roadway.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was really what we were trying to do. So we weren't out there last year, and I let everyone know like, hey, we need to follow the rules of the road, but we also had some grace. So we weren't out there for everybody, hey, RCW, this, here's your ticket. No.
Right.
But we were out there, okay, people pulling out, campfires. And, no, bring that back. Bring that
Yeah.
back. Okay. And, okay. So
It seemed
things
like
like that.
everybody, like, there was a lot of anticipation of like, oh my gosh, they're going to end this event. And I can't
Mhm.
believe that, are we never going to have traditions anymore? But then when it actually came down to it, the education and polite asking, which is
Mhm.
the only thing that I saw, was actually pretty well received. And I think people were like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we didn't have any major incidents or anything like that. I don't think if you even pulled the numbers, there weren't that many tickets written or anything like that.
It was so busy because we had the solstice walk
Mm,
fell on the
mhm.
same, like the solstice walk's always on the solstice. We can't move it. It's on the 21st.
Mother Nature picks that one.
Yeah. But the lighted car parade is traditionally the Saturday before Christmas, which happened to be solstice. And so there was so many people
Mhm.
downtown. And I think I even passed you at one point. I was like, it's chaotic. How are you doing? Great. But considering how many people were downtown at once with
Mhm.
one event that is planned and we have emergency, plans, we had the fire department there, we had our little walkie-talkies and everything. And then the one that is just organic, but that the community kind of has to adapt in real time. When you think about that, it was actually a nice reflection of the community being flexible and
Mhm.
respectful because it went pretty well. And there was some feedback we got later where people were like, that was such a disaster having the lighted car parade on the same night. Who planned that? It's like, well,
no one did. That's
no
the
one.
problem.
Yes.
So aside from that, though, of it kind of affecting the vibe of the solstice walk, which really is a mild complaint. And, for this year, the solstice will be
On a different day.
next day, I think.
Yeah.
So no one has to worry about that for like, what, 7 more years or however
however
the
the
yearly,
cycle thing is.
the annual days fall. But I was actually impressed by the community that night, and I was impressed with the police department and just like the community adapting. And it might have seemed like this big scary thing that was going to be threatened or changed, but really it was just an effort to keep everybody safe.
Yes. And that's the hope this year is that, we'll put the reminder out again. Hey, you're going to go to it, be safe. And here's what we're looking for. And so they know, hey, we're not going to, put my car in the street, block the road. Everyone go home. We didn't do any of that. We weren't taking candy from people. And no candy. No, but it's just a matter of little things like that. And just
no
sure.
fires.
Yes.
You can have candy, but no fires.
No running in the street for candy. We said that too. Hey, maybe we find a better way instead of throwing it, especially when it's dark and you can't see anybody. And
like maybe have someone, instead of riding with you in the dump truck, they walk up and down the streets and hand people candy, like with the matching shirt for that dump truck or whatever. So they have the affiliation.
Because even during our walking parades, we got told we can't throw candy anymore. We have to hand candy out to people. So I can only imagine if we're walking down the street, we can't throw candy, that throwing it out of a moving vehicle that weighs a couple tons is probably not the best idea, especially in the dark. But I'm just imagining if I've never been to Snohomish before and it's my first time in Snohomish and I happen upon this event and I accidentally make a right turn and suddenly join the parade. I could imagine.
A little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, it would be like, oh my gosh, this town is nuts. They do this every weekend.
You just put your window down and wave.
Yeah, you just start. It's like those videos when you see like the dogs that join the marathon, and finish the marathon with them. And it's like, yep, we're here. We're just going to start driving down the road with all these dump trucks that are lit up for Christmas. But
and that's how a lot of these things happen. I remember years ago when I started working in Seattle, I had to stop into Bellevue and pulling down the street, and now they have Snowflake Lane. But it was the first year of its existence. They didn't close the street down, and I just remember being stuck.
That's so funny.
And I don't know what's going on, and suddenly this suds are hitting my car with the fake snow.
Oh my gosh.
Now you look at that event draws people from all over,
right?
And it's the same sort of thing. It's one of those things. You learn, you adapt, and that's what we're doing here. As I said, there's no, we're not stopping people and take those lights down. It's more a matter of
and maybe
safety.
it's going to get to the point where, like Snowflake Lane, it is going to need to be organized. But I appreciate that the take on that wasn't like, you have to organize or we're going to make sure that you don't do it. It was like, let's start with education first.
Just be safe. That's our goal here.
Well, I think that the city does that often. Like, let's start with education first and, see how it goes. It's not like this heavy iron fist that's coming down.
Well,
you will not have fun on Christmas.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, we're not the fun police, and we're not trying to, do anything like that. So anytime we can, I think it's a great event as long as it's it's safely handled. I have no problem with it. It's something I'd bring my family to. And that's kind of what I look at. It's not something that is inherently going to, it's not a drag race or something that, is inherently going to end in disaster or something without. So it's just, we learn and we talk. And I think a big part of it is just having conversations with people and they know, because I think they just, word gets around that, the worst is going to happen. And then I think people saw last year that wasn't exactly the case. So this year I'm expecting a more positive response. Hopefully we'll see.
Well, hopefully conversations like this one will help educate the community to tell them that you guys aren't as scary as the belts and the big uniforms
like
make you out to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that it's kind of like, until you say otherwise, people just assume. Like, I really doubt that most of the people that come to watch that think that it's not a parade.
Yes.
Like, once you're on the event planning side of things, you're like, oh yeah, special event permit, emergency plans, insurance, like street closures, road, blockages and monitors and all those
these things.
But when you go to a parade, if you've never done that before, you're like, it's a parade.
It's so much fun.
There's people going down the street. I'm like, you don't even pay attention to like, oh, there's still cars parked here or not. I really doubt that the average person notices those things.
Yeah.
But if you're a driver, you're going to notice it. But I think it's just kind of goes to show that like people just go to the event. So why wouldn't you think that you could just set up hot dogs in the middle of the street? You saw someone do it last year. Why wouldn't you think that your kid could drive their Power Wheels around? You saw that last year. Like that must be what this event is. So it's not like people are trying to be malicious
No.
or, cause problems. It's the assumption.
Mhm.
And if you don't try to correct the assumption, it's basically like in the dog world, we say whatever you don't disagree with, you agree with.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're not providing that little guidance or
Corrections.
correction, then you're basically like, yeah, I agree with this. Go ahead and do
Yeah.
it. It's
And
not a problem.
and some things are just human nature. I just know me, if I was walking around the street and someone threw out candy, I'd be diving over people to get free candy.
Free
So I'm like,
candy.
yeah, that's why,
Right.
okay, that's why we got to maybe change our tactics a little bit here because it's
Yeah.
probably not the best.
Yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that.
Of
Yeah.
course.
As always, our guests are always so informative, and I just love learning all of this new information about how you guys function as a contracted police department. I now know. But thank you so much for explaining all of this because I feel like I'm much more informed. I'm not as scared of you guys. So, if anyone in the community has additional questions than what we're able to talk about today, how can they reach you or learn more about the Snohomish Police Department?
911.
Yeah,
Please
exactly,
don't call
right?
the emergency line.
You know what? People do it all the time. No, I mean, we're a little bit different in that we, our staff, so if it's during the week,
Mhm.
we're at 2:30 Maple. I always tell people, come on in and
Ah.
ask questions there. But you can just shoot us an email. Find us on Snohomish Police on Facebook, or you can go to the Snohomish County website, the sheriff's office, and there'll be a link to it that way. We have a PD inbox, so feel free to shoot us an email if I have any questions or anything like that. I do tell people. I don't monitor that myself, so
Mhm.
there's sometimes a delay. So a lot of times it'll go directly to me, but I will always respond, or I'll have someone else respond. So we try and return that as best we can. And we have Deputy Davis, our outreach guy.
Mhm.
His email is out there. It's taylor.davis@snowco.org, but it's on Facebook too. So any sort of community issues, if something you'd like to speak to him about, or have him come speak to a
Mhm.
group or anything like that,
Ah, yeah,
we're
great
open.
idea.
Oh, yeah. What are some examples of that?
So the biggest ones would be neighborhood watch group type
Mm.
like that. He talks to schools, businesses. So
Mhm.
we do that. We'll go and talk to them about safety plans or what they have in store. We can
Mhm.
take a look around and see if we have any suggestions for them, or just any sort of neighborhood issue or business issue. If there's a
Mm.
frequent problem and trying to find some sort of solution, those are the types of things that he goes
Gotcha.
to, and we try and find something we can do.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
awesome.
We always end our podcast with this question. So I don't know if you heard it you said you listened to the fire department one. Oh, wait. Before we transition into that, is there still, because we talked about this with the fire department, is there still a plan for like a blood drive on Halloween?
That's still in the works.
Okay.
Yes, I know they're having a few hiccups on the other end, not our fire department end, but on the other end to get that work. But yes, that is the plan, is to
Okay.
have
At
that
the Carnegie, right?
at the Carnegie is going to be the plan if it goes through. So
Did you want to do a plug for team police
Uh,
department? Or?
yeah, I would say, I would say I usually get my family to do that, but my wife's terrified of needles, so we'll see.
I'm
But
with her.
yes, yes, if you want to come and tell the fire guys that you came on our behalf, because they usually kick our butt and all of those things.
Oh,
So
that's
we can
unfortunate.
come.
We'll try to support you guys.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So we asked them, if you heard in the podcast, if you could describe your perfect day in Snohomish, what would that look like for you?
It's funny because I just had my son was gone the other day, so it was my daughter. So we took her downtown Snohomish the other day. So it revolves around food. I'm not gonna lie. There are too
That's a
many.
typical answer.
Yeah.
Too many. I know there are too many options,
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
so for me, I always try and vary up which coffee place I go to, whether I'm
Yep.
going to Visible or Proper Joe's or whatever. But for me, my perfect day in Snohomish is on one of our fall sunny days, not
Mhm.
too hot, where I can usually get something to eat where you can sit outside.
Mm.
So big fan of the Andy's Fish House and the Cat House Pizza. Those are the two places that my daughter always wants to go to.
Nice.
But just being able to walk around, and that's the cool thing about here is going into the shops and just seeing the historic downtown. It's so unlike any other
Mhm.
community in the area.
Mhm.
It's kind of I lived in the Midwest for a little bit. Some of those it very reminds me of some of those old Midwestern towns that you'd see in movies. I really enjoy it. So
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
It does. Yeah. It's such a special place to
It
be able to
is.
enjoy. And I'm with you on the fall days.
Yes.
Like the
This
ones where
weather,
it's like you
yeah.
can be walking around for a while and not get too hot.
Not
Kind of that.
sweaty.
Yes.
Unlike my dog walk today where I was actually really warm. But yeah, I think one of the reasons that our community is so nice and we can walk down the street and just enjoy it and feel safe
Safe.
is because of the work from your department, and we really appreciate you guys, and the level of service that you provide is noticeable, and we're grateful for it. And I think, we can kind of follow those things up to leadership. So you're doing a great job. We're appreciative of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here today. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Snohomish Storytellers, brought to you by the Historic Downtown Snohomish Association, produced by Red Trucks.